Roberts.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for joining us today. Mr. Park, you say that it could put jobs at risk. Right now, some of BHP's practices at Mount Arthur Mine are putting lives at risk. We've had a discussion, I think, about some of the practices at Mount Arthur, and they're absolutely atrocious. They're inhuman. Clearly, the Fair Work Act has failed. Do you have problems with the Fair Work Act? Because you mentioned uncertainty and complexity already exists.
It does, Senator, and our problem is the amendments being proposed with the Fair Work Act that are in front of us today. We think they will make the business of being a miner in Australia overly complex and less competitive in the long run for Australia.
The basic problems at Mount Arthur and across the mining sector in Eastern Australia, the coal mining sector in Eastern Australia, are due to a lack of enforcement of the Fair Work Act. I agree with you that this provision is highly complex. It will add complexity and uncertainty, but we need to get back to compliance with the Act. Surely it's a company's responsibility, employer's responsibility, whether it's a direct employer, a mine owner, working through directly with the workforce or working through a labour hire company, to make sure the laws are complied with.
Well, Senator, like any responsible employer in the country, we'll always comply with the Fair Work Act.
Yet Simon Turner was injured, totally and permanently disabled, and he was threatened if he reported the injury, and his injury was never reported.
Senator, we're aware of your long-standing advocacy for Mr Turner. We've discussed it in the past. We've offered to meet with you in the coming weeks. We're pleased that you've accepted that offer to meet with us and discuss Mr Turner's case in more detail. I don't think it is appropriate for us to discuss the outcome of Mr Turner's compensation or settlement in front of this committee.
I didn't intend to go there. That's not something I would do in public. But what I am trying to point out to you is that compliance with the law would solve this problem. And BHP has been in breach of the law in many aspects with regard to the Fair Work Act. You're not alone. The CFMEU has been very, very much complicit in this and enabled the practices at Mount Arthur. Every person who is employed in the Australian coal sector, not in accordance with the award, is employed under an enterprise agreement that the CFMEU signed off on. We know that. So what I want to know is, you have tried fly in, fly out from mines that are within spitting distance of Moranbah. You've tried labour hire, and to me, when I saw the details of the labour hire scheme in Mount Arthur, I thought there's only one thing on here, and that's a cut in pay. Aren't there other ways of getting improved efficiencies than exploiting workers?
Senator, I heard the previous evidence on the two mines that were built, Caval Ridge and Dorney. I'd like to take the senators here through the background of those. I think this is really important context that was not mentioned today. Back when we brought those mines on stream and were developing them, it was the peak of the global resource boom. Our company had around 1,000 unfilled roles in the Bowen Basin. Unfilled roles that we couldn't fill. That's one company out of many operating here. The approval to us from the Queensland Government to develop those mines on a fly-in, fly-out basis was with exactly that in mind. To develop that resource for the good of the state and the national economy would require a workforce from outside the local area. So I'm pleased to say that we have people in Townsville, on the Sunshine Coast, on the Gold Coast, in Brisbane, who benefited from the resource boom and have well-paying jobs at those mines. So it's not correct to say that we built those fly-in, fly-out mines with opposition in the local community, because, Senator, we couldn't staff those mines if we'd wanted to.
Do you see an imbalance of power in the industrial relations situation at the moment, and that's why Mount Arthur Mine, for example, is going around the Fair Work Act?
Well, Senator, I'm not sure what the accusation is that we are going around the Fair Work Act. Happy to ask my colleague Steve if he wants to make any observations on that accusation, but there is nothing that I can comment on.
Thank you, Senator. I have no knowledge of anything under the Fair Work Act that we're not in compliance with at Mount Arthur. We take our compliance obligations very seriously. We have a mixed workforce at Mount Arthur, as I'm sure given your interest in that mine, of employees employed by Mount Arthur Coal, one of the BHP's companies. We use labour hire. We have Tees there as a service contractor operating in one of the pits. We expect our third-party providers to comply with their obligations under the Fair Work Act, and I don't have any knowledge that they're not.
How is it that miners can be not covered by the coal mines insurance scheme that is compulsory, and that your labour hire people, the Chandler McLeod Group, are not covering Simon Turner, for example, under the coal mines insurance scheme, and instead bludge off the taxpayers of New South Wales with the state government scheme, and Simon Turner doesn't get his full entitlements? That's your responsibility.
Senator, I have no knowledge of what you're referring to there in terms of non-compliance with our obligations under the coal mining industry scheme.
Well, we look forward to discussing them in detail with you.
Happy to.
Happy to do that, Senator.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.